Hey there, my friends. My name is Spencer Hughes. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and thanks a lot for being here on my channel here on YouTube. And if you're not on the YouTube channel, please do all the things they say to do, like join, like, follow, blah, 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 whatever it happens to be. Thanks a lot. I saw a meme circulating again that I wanted to validate the truth behind, right? And I don't take memes. I'm very, very skeptical of memes, even memes that tend to agree with my philosophical views on life. I think those are the ones we need to be the most critical of. When we see a meme that we agree with, we automatically assume its authenticity and we assume its validity and truth and what have you. I don't do that. I did that for many, many years, ended up with egg all over my face, and I don't do that anymore. I do my best to try to validate the sources and things like that. So I saw this meme that I remember seeing years ago. In fact, I think this first circulated, I'll give you the date here in a moment. I have some stuff in front of me here. This goes back several years, this meme. It's not a new meme by any means. It actually, I thought I had the date here, and I do not. But it's from Pastor Peter LaRufa from Grace Fellowship Church in Kentucky somewhere. And the meme shows him sitting down. It looks like he's in a church, and he's holding his hand over what presumably is the Bible. I'm sorry, I got the dog door in my studio. It's a crazy place to have it, but it's in my studio here, and the dogs run in and out sometimes. So just bear with me on the noise in the background. So anyway, he's sitting in what appears to be his fellowship church, and his hands over what presumably is the Bible. And the quotation is, "If somewhere within the Bible I were to find a passage that said 2 + 2 = 5, I would believe it, accept it as true, and then do my best to work it out and understand it." Now, I know this isn't a new meme, but it got me thinking about what I see on a lot of debates between Christians and non-believers, Christians and atheists, Christians and agnostics, however you want to frame it. And that is this view, this unyielding, very, very stiff view from many Christians that the Bible cannot be wrong. The Bible is not wrong, is never wrong, never makes mistakes, never has contradictions, never is wrong to any extent, which I think is preposterous. To say that when you start off with that kind of a foundation, there's no room for growth. If I tell you my way is the only way, my way is the highway, there's no ands, bits, or buts, or ifs, or whatever, we have nowhere to go. We have nowhere to grow. And that is the mistake I think a lot of Christians make. And that's the mistake I made. You may not know this, but I was a Christian for 40 years. 40 years I'll never get back in my life. I'm almost 54. So as you can tell, the overwhelming majority of my life was spent as a Christian. And yes, I was a real Christian. I believe that Jesus was at my side always. I prayed every night from the time I was old enough to pray. My parents got me praying when I was like a year old, probably 2 years old, whatever I was. I would pray up until my early 40s, and went to church several times a week, believed in everything that I was told, believed in the Bible word for word. And I was one of those that said the Bible cannot make mistakes. How could it? If it's the word of God, if it's inspired by God, how can a book contain errors and fallacies and what have you? And then when I started reading the Bible more critically and actually read the Bible book by book by book, verse by verse by verse, there was a whole list. You had to run the gamut of all the inconsistencies, all the contradictions, all the untruths contained in the Bible. But when you start off with that presupposition that the Bible cannot be wrong, you can't go anywhere. So I looked into this quote, first of all, getting back to the quote by allegedly by Pastor Peter LaRufa, and he actually did say this. He said it. He said, "If somewhere within the Bible I were to find a passage that said 2 + 2 = 5, I would believe it, accept it as true, and then do my best to work it out and understand it." And it shows the stubbornness that many believers have, that there has to be some reason that the Bible would be wrong. It can't just be wrong, right? Like the rest of us and like any other book in the history of the world has the possibility within it to be wrong. things are expected to be wrong sometimes. We can't expect things to be perfect, 100% accurate, except for the Bible. And Christians insist that there has to be some explanation. So what's interesting here is, first of all, I had to look something else. So this is a valid quote. He actually did say that. So he already stepped in the doo-doo. We're going to get to that in a minute. But this reminded me of something else, like where I had heard this before. It's not really an original quotation, this reference to 2 + 2 = 5. And I was a little embarrassed that it took me this long to figure it out, but it finally came back to me that George Orwell, in his masterpiece novel 1984, uses this very example. And here's the context of that. The protagonist of the book, Winston Smith, uses this phrase to wonder if the state, if Big Brother, if the government might declare 2 + 2 = 5 as a fact. And he ponders that whether, if everybody believes it, if the government in this example of 1984 and George Orwell says 2 + 2 is 5, we declare 2 + 2 = 5. If enough people believe that from the state, they believe the government, the same way Christians believe the Bible is 100% correct. If people started believing the government, that yes, if the government told us, if Big Brother told us 2 + 2 = 5, it must be true. He asked the question that if everybody believes that, does that make it true? Kind of like with pronunciations. One of the things I cringe at is when dictionaries start accepting mispronunciations as the actual pronunciations and as acceptable pronunciations. It drives me nuts. That's something I haven't changed my mind on all these years, is that just because people are dumb and don't know how to pronounce a word doesn't mean you accept that and say, well, enough people are saying it wrong that we're going to accept it as the right way to pronounce it, or at least a way that will not get you in trouble with your teachers or in some type of a contest, a word contest, pronunciation contest. If you say the word wrong, we'll accept it as correct, even though it's not, because enough people have said it wrong so many times before. So let's go back to this. This is really, really scary here. I'm finding this from my searches from biblical kind of Christian sites. This is all coming from Christian sites. This is not something I made up. This is not something from an atheist site. This is actually from Christian-based information and sites and research. So it talks about doing a little thought experiment, which this is why I'm doing a YouTube and not a TikTok or any other shorter form. I needed the time to kind of dig in deep here. So I hope you're going to stay with me to the end here. All right. So we're going to do a thought experiment where if we come across this apparently false mathematical statement of 2 + 2 = 5, would people simply dismiss it as being evidently wrong? This site says there's other possibilities, that it's not necessarily wrong, 2 + 2 = 5. And here are the examples they give. This is unbelievable. This is why there are so many Christian apologists. This is why there are so many apologists for God in the Bible and Christianity. It makes your head want to explode. So first they're saying it could be an approximation. If the Bible said 2 + 2 = 5, no, don't write it off yet. Here's what it might mean. It could be, for the example, 2.4 + 2.4 = 4.8, right? That's correct. 2.4 + 2.4 = 4.8, which when you round it to the whole numbers means that 2 + 2 = 5. I don't know that I even buy that, but they're saying that that's maybe what's going on here, that it's an approximation. The Bible wouldn't necessarily, you couldn't say it's wrong if it's a 2 + 2 = 5. You have to look at it in the context of rounding up, which I think is horse crap. Second explanation they give here is it could be a form of poetry. 2 + 2 = 5 could just be a poem. If the Bible's wrong, it could be poetry. They give the example of the Beatles singing 8 days a week, knowing that there's no week that has 8 days in it, right? A week has 7 days in it. And we've come to agree upon that as a fact. I don't think there's any culture on earth, maybe there might be, but most people on earth, if you ask them how many days are in a week, they would say 7, not 8. So why did the Beatles say that? 8 days a week. So first example is it could be rounding up. If the Bible said 2 + 2 = 5, it could just be that they're rounding up. It's not necessarily wrong. Second is it could be poetry, don't you know? It could be poetry. And number three, it could be a joke. See, the Bible's full of jokes. It's just full of laughter. All the genocide and all the killing and all the mayhem and murder and all sorts of horrible atrocities committed within the Bible, many of them at the hands of God. God, in the first chapter of his book, the Bible, has already obliterated more people on the face of the earth than every serial killer, dictator, war criminal combined could ever possibly do. In the first book of the Bible, God's already shown his mayhem in horrible ways. So it could just be a joke, even though the Bible doesn't have like anything funny in it, even remotely funny in it. The only thing funny about the Bible is that so many people take it literally. So many people actually want to see through all the mayhem and murder and horrible things in it. So they're saying the third thing is it could be a joke, or in fact, it could be any number of things because we use language, including apparently mathematical language, in all sorts of ways, not just mathematical ways. I see this a lot. As a former Christian, I'm very, very critical of this. And I look at Christian websites and just all the apologetics, all the excuse making for God and for the Bible, and this insistence that the Bible has to be correct. It has to be right. I don't know why they can't just say, no, the Bible's wrong here. It's wrong for this genocide to have taken place. It's wrong to take the firstborn of the Egyptians. It's wrong to wreak havoc on the planet. It's wrong when God unalived 500 million people, by some accounts, in the Great Flood, which never even happened. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You hear so many Christians saying, it's okay. We'll find a reason for this. We'll find an explanation. If we have to say it's poetry, we'll say it's poetry. If we have to say it's a joke, it's a joke. If we have to say they're rounding up numbers, we'll do whatever we have to do to make sure this Bible is never proven incorrect. That's dogma. That is fanaticism. And that is the insidious nature of indoctrination. When you can't sit there, when a Christian can't sit there and say, you know what, you're right. That's a horrible passage in the Bible. It's wrong. When a Christian can't say, you know what, God is good, but in that case, he wasn't so good. So maybe God isn't always good. Maybe he's mostly good. But in that case, he's definitely not good. But most Christians don't agree with me. Most Christians don't think that's the way to go. They will stick by the Bible no matter what. It's the sinking ship. The rats have long fled the boat, and Christians will adhere to this life raft of the Bible and stick with it no matter what. When all they have to do is grab onto a boat that's trying to save them, and the boat says the Bible is wrong sometimes. Deal with it. They won't do it. They won't reach for that lifeboat. They would rather drown holding on to the Bible then moving on to safety into this other vessel that's labeled, yes, the Bible is wrong sometimes. We just have to deal with it. What are your thoughts on this? Please leave comments down below. And again, if you haven't followed, please do. I would love it if you would follow this account. We don't always talk about deconstruction from Christianity. We talk about all sorts of things. And this is just one of the topics I'm very, very passionate about. So I would appreciate a follow. That would be great. And I will talk to you again in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching.